Well, this is Steve Ridgell, and I'm continuing with a few thoughts on the question, if this world's so bad, where's your God? Or if your God's so good, why is this world so bad? And from a Christian perspective, I've shared already in the last couple of videos a couple of things. One is God made a perfect world. We messed it up. Well, God had everything set for us forever. We messed it up. Adam and Eve messed it up, but we would have too, because it's all about free will, choices, consequences. And Satan came in and basically said, hey, did God really say that? This, what God said is not true, and you ought to be God. That's basically the temptation. And Adam and Eve fell for it just like we do. We still make bad choices. There's still consequences. But it's also hard to accept that you're to blame for some of your choices and your consequences. We all want to blame someone else, and that too is as old as the garden. It is. When God says to Adam and Eve, where are you? It's not because he can't find them. They're not playing hide and seek. They don't want to face God because they had this intimate, close relationship, and they broke it and they know it. And so God's in effect saying, where have you gone? Why are you not with me? Wanting them to see what they have done. And did you hear, if you read that account in the early part of Genesis, you'll hear and see their excuses. Well, Adam immediately says, well, God, it was Eve. Eve. Don't blame me. It was my wife. She led me into. We all love to do that. Blame someone else. Well, it was the older kids who. Well, it was my neighbors who. Well, if the church hadn't done, if this person hadn't done, and that person told me, and this person convinced me, and as if we are spineless people with no will of our own. It's always somebody else's fault. And Adam frankly goes on and says, Eve, the woman you gave me. God, don't blame me. You kind of got me in this situation when you gave me Eve. Well, don't blame me for making these choices. God made me this way. In a fallen world, of course, there are lots of things that go wrong because we are in a fallen world. Didn't go wrong in the garden. Went wrong when Adam and Eve made bad choices and they had to leave the garden. Of course, Eve cuts right to the chase too. Well, hey, don't blame me for this, God. It was the serpent, Satan. Blame the devil, blame somebody else, blame God, blame anybody. Just don't stand up and say, I did this. One of the great marks of spiritual people is not that they never do anything wrong, because they do. Spiritual people stand up and said, I did it. I'm sorry. God, help me fix this, and how do I do better? I love that about people that do that. So in our world's a mess because, well, God made a perfect one. Adam and Eve made bad choices just like we do, and the world's a mess. And Satan still keeps whispering in our ear, God didn't say that. What God said is not true, and don't worry, you should be God. You know better than he does anyway. And then when it does go wrong, hey, don't blame me for that choice. It was the people that influenced me. God, it was you for making me this way or making this world or whatever. And Satan, it was really you because you came in. And at some point, we've got to say this world's a mess. And you know who's responsible for it? Well, all of us that have made poor choices, wrong choices, hurt people, done things we shouldn't have done, didn't do the things we should have. That's one of the great lessons of the garden. So we'll continue talking about that in the next episode. In the meantime, this is Steve Ridgell saying, let's stand up and be accountable.